there is no one way of being Muslim. God for us is closer to us than our own jugular vein. And I think that's so beautiful that we can determine our relationships with God and faith. It's between us and God at the end of the day, and no one else. So I think I've been reflecting a lot about that. I'm thinking both about all the beautiful ways community can show up, but also the beautiful ways in which you can be community with God. One of my aunties called me over and she was like, we have to make bread in the shape of a moon. Masjid potluck that night. And while the yeast was rising, she was like, oh my God, there's a protest right now about this landlord that's increasing rent for this one locally owned Muslim and minority owned business in Vermont. I have to go support this protest. So we're like, okay, fine. While the yeast is rising, we're gonna go to this protest. So she got us all dressed up, made these signs, everything, went and protested with my aunties, and then came back, finished making the bread for the masjid, and then went to that community potluck. And I think that spirit of we're going to show up for a community, we're going to show up in the ways we can do as well. Ramadan is really, really intense. We're fasting. And so it's not an easy thing to go to a protest or make food or whatever else. So I think seeing the ways in which community care really gets practiced in Ramadan in really intentional ways is one of my favorite Ramadan traditions. One thing I've been thinking a lot about, and one thing we talk a lot about at Heart, is, what does it mean to approach Ramadan with compassion, with rahmah, with adala, with justice, and to really think about how we can bring our faith into our organizing as well. Muslims have always practiced reproductive justice, whether it be the first Muslims in this country who were enslaved Muslims, Black Muslims, and how they paved the way for RJ. At Heart, we really honor and find inspiration from that legacy by highlighting the ways in which we take inspiration from their work in our faith and in our politics. We really approach a faith in a pluralistic and anti-harm approach. So we find inspiration in the core tenets of Islam when fighting for reproductive justice. And we don't really see a conflict between reproductive justice and faith. I think it's a false binary. And folks have consistently and always been asserting their bodily autonomy and using faith to do so. I think Ramadan asks the question how we live our everyday lives. And that way, Ramadan pushes us to think about how we can bring faith into our everyday practices, whether that be about, how we approach justice and community, but also even things like bodily autonomy.